They say being a Nintendo fan is hard. Not only can it be incredibly frustrating with how often Nintendo completely flips the script with their hardware in a way that may be unappealing to you, only to win you back entirely a generation or two later, or the copious amount of delays we saw with Breath of the Wild, and how Zelda games are seemingly always being delayed, to the point it's just what is expected. Or how Nintendo announced and released a new Metroid game on the 3DS that wasn't really a Metroid game, after not releasing a full-blown Metroid title in nearly 5 years. Nintendo does a lot of little things that can add up to being incredibly frustrating. We defend it. We understand it. We get what Nintendo is doing. Most of the time. Sometimes we just chalk it up to Nintendo being Nintendo, when we really just can't understand why they are doing something at all. Hello, friend codes on Switch. For the most part, we can move beyond a lot of that. We have endeared ourselves with many of Nintendo's franchises, to the point that we'll put up with a generation like Wii U without an exclusive Zelda title, and terrible marketing, or even multiple generations of Nintendo trying to expand the medium to my grandma, when we get rewarded at the end of it all with Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon on a home console, Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 1 and 2, and even some amazing JRPG love with the ongoing Xenoblade series, which just had its third game released in the US since 2010. And that isn't to say that during those grandma years there weren't great games as well. We all know the names of those ones too. But something just feels different now than then. Hell, even the most recent editions of Mario Kart and Smash have been utterly fantastic. Plus, Animal Crossing took a nice leap forward with New Leaf and now Pocket Camp. We've witnessed the revival and saving of the Fire Emblem franchise as well over the last few years. These are all the reasons we can deal with Nintendo's decisions that baffle us. Is anyone honestly still defending Nintendo's decision for running voice chat through an app after it's been proven the Switch can do local voice chat and even supports local headsets officially now? I am sure some are, but those aren't the fans I am talking to. You know who you are. The kind that just accept everything a company does, claiming they can do no wrong, making excuses that not even Nintendo is making for what they do, just because you feel some incessant need to defend a company you love that doesn't really love you back. I won't say you're a fanboy per se, or even an enthusiast like I feel I am, but you could certainly have your own perception of reality that the rest of the world just can't seem to agree with. And look, I'm not trying to insult you for your beliefs. You may really think that voice chat through an app is great, but that's just one instance in a universe of mistakes Nintendo has made that many people just pass off as good. It's not just Nintendo fans doing that either. Go ask Apple product users the benefit of not having a headphone jack and question them how silly that is. And you'll get some pompous response about how Lightning headphones are the future, as are wireless, and some other nonsense about providing a better sound profile, while 90% of them are still using the Lightning dongle to convert from a standard headphone jack that provides no audio improvements whatsoever. I mean, even most Xbox fans can admit the Kinect should have never been forced to be packed in with the Xbox One for 6 months at launch. Even the fans that like Kinect admit that much. Then again, Xbox fans will tout how amazing their Xbox Live service is, or how great the platform is without any consistent exclusives backing it up year to year, and won't take any of the criticism of the sort, and we're talking at the extreme end here. But as I said earlier, extreme fans of any platform, regardless of the medium, is going to feel the same way. I use a Galaxy S8 Plus, but I'm not loyal to Samsung, yet I'll hear Galaxy fans, much like Apple fans, at the extreme end again, boast about how much better the new Galaxy currently is than the Razer phone, or what have you, when really, the differences are pretty negligible. Getting back to the point I was making earlier, this can all make it incredibly frustrating being a Nintendo fan. First, we have Nintendo's ever-changing ways that sometimes make you want to slap Reggie Fils-Aimé and Shigeru Miyamoto in the face and say, "Stop it! Hello, Star Fox Zero," and just give us what we've been asking for. Then we get it from the other end, that things Nintendo can do no wrong. And that makes it tough being a Nintendo fan. You know what makes it even harder? You know what really grinds my gears, however? I can deal with Nintendo's incessant need to always try something new just to do it. I accepted this fact when they released the N64 controller built for someone with 3 hands. I can deal with the extreme end of Nintendo fans because, well, I just can. It has to be done. You can't be part of any fan base without the willingness to deal with it. But it's the constant grind we hear from the outside, heck, comments from the inside of the fan base at times, that makes being a Nintendo fan hard. You see, recently I was browsing a thread on a popular video game forum that was talking about Nintendo Switch and how it moved 10 million units. People did what they typically do. They compared it to the current generation. It sold more in the first 9 months than the PlayStation 4 did, just an FYI, and tried to project what that could mean for the future. Debated about which system is ultimately better because, well, console wars will never die in the eyes of fans. And then we saw a shifting of goalposts. We all know too well as Nintendo fans that the cries that Nintendo is doomed are numerous. I've had it beat into my head almost daily for 2 decades at least, dating back to arguments over the SNES versus the Genesis on the playground. But for the most part, I am not bothered by that anymore. I passed most of it off as active trolling. But the goalpost shifting is basically as follows. Many people thought Switch would flop after January's presentation really dampened the momentum the system built up in October 2016. The system sold like crazy during launch, but remained sold out, having those same people say Nintendo is creating artificial demand, and that sales aren't really that great. Then we had the obvious report that Switch came in 3rd place in November. Then, the 10 million unit sales goal is dropped, almost as if Nintendo is doing a mic drop on the haters after that report came out, and the goalpost moves from the system failing to launch, or having a bad first year and selling worse than the Wii U, then having a bad November, and obviously about to drop off a cliff, to something along the lines of this gem of a comment, and I'm going to read this verbatim. I believe the Switch is going to fall off a cliff sales-wise after this fiscal year. Nintendo simply can't deliver a top-tier Mario and Zelda game in the same year basically ever. It never happens. It won't happen again, and the system is going to tank. So now the barometer went from bad launch to bad first year, then seemingly justified with a 3rd place November, and now the actual sales figures lifetime to date are pretty impressive. We are moving that failure goalpost to the next year, because Mario and Zelda can't happen again. Never mind that Zelda isn't even one of Nintendo's top-selling franchises on a game-per-game basis, and that 3D Mario is actually the worst-selling Mario style of game in comparison to the 2D Marios or most of the spin-offs. Or that Animal Crossing, Pokemon, Smash, and many other franchises have yet to release that all, historically, sell way more units than the aforementioned Zelda and Mario titles. Did we also forget to mention that it's highly likely all of Nintendo's own studios are making games only for Switch, thus meaning we're going to get even more Nintendo games faster, and this could lead to, yes, another 3D and Zelda landing in the same generation, landing in the same year even. Even if this weird scenario where those 2 games are the only reason Switch matters, they could still come full circle again in this same generation. Should Nintendo really want them to. But it gets worse than that. Let's just move the goalpost into the realm of unrealistic expectations even further to diminish the success of the Switch with this gem. Another comment I am reading verbatim. Switch is a home console and a portable. 3DS isn't going to be around forever. Switch is doing gangbusters, but if it's going to replace their home and portable business, it needs to give them similar unit sales for a Nintendo home console and a DS/Game Boy. So more than that, I've heard it told that the Switch needs to sell the combined sales total of Wii and DS, since it's a hybrid to be a success. Yes, Switch needs to move 250 million units to be successful, because hey, Nintendo doesn't have multiple revenue streams from 2 different platforms anymore once 3DS is discontinued, of course. Well, save for the fact Nintendo has already begun diversifying the revenue before the 3DS kicks the bucket. Have you heard of Super Mario Run? Pokemon Go? I know, Nintendo didn't make it, but they do still get a cut of it. Fire Emblem Heroes, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, and the fact that Nintendo has committed 2 to 3 smart device games every year for the foreseeable future, and that these titles have tens of millions of installs, 150 plus million installs for Super Mario Run. and generate revenue streams that are massively profitable, and even if they are below some of the internal expectations, they are cheap to make, and Nintendo makes a lot of bank on them, and each of these titles will continue to make bank year over year moving forward. What about the building of 2 theme parks inside Universal Studios? Which, sure, they do include an initial investment, but will see monthly returns in a way Nintendo couldn't even dream of when they owned a majority of the Seattle Mariners. They will have one such park in Japan and another in the US, and they are going to make a crap load of money from it, just like Disney, Nickelodeon, and Universal already do at their respective parks. Beyond that, Nintendo has been somewhat silently looking into the movie industry and expanding their merchandise opportunities, all while continuing to support the massive sales of Amiibo, something that didn't exist last generation. And we're talking about the Wii/DS gen, FYI. Nintendo has already prepared, quite handedly, for the reality of an overall smaller install base compared to running 2 platforms simultaneously. And that revenue stream is less volatile too. Meaning, those that do buy a Switch will be getting consistent, high-quality Nintendo games with very little, if any, droughts, making seemingly everyone happy. Well, most everyone. You still have some fans that wish the Switch was a handheld only, even though you can use it as a handheld only already, and others who wish the Switch was dropped in favor of a 12 teraflop 4K beast that gets every game made just because it can. I mean, you can't literally satisfy everyone, and that includes Nintendo fans. Hell, I have fans today telling me Breath of the Wild is a bad game. They are wrong, obviously, as it's the greatest game ever made. And no one can dispute this because I am law, and the law has spoken. Obviously. But the reality of the comments above and the pressure we get from all sides can be pretty overwhelming. I often wonder how I as a Nintendo fan put up with it all, especially as an enthusiast type with an online personality that puts me squarely in front of thousands of people every single day that will declare open season on me the moment I have a small speck of a suggestion the Switch maybe didn't perform quite as well as most hoped during a single month. Yes, I haven't forgotten you lot. Reality is, a lot of this feels wholly unique to the Nintendo fanbase. The constant pressure and berating we are put under for just enjoying what we do. It's no wonder we sometimes join in chorus with Xbox fans calling Sony fans the Sony pony, or when PlayStation fans call Xbox fans Xbots, while both of those fan bases call us Nintendrones. We jump in whatever camp suits us in that moment to make us feel better about what we love. You know, it is interesting too how all 3 of those negative nicknames for fanboys of the 3 major platforms basically all mean the exact same thing. Okay, so many or maybe all fan bases do have to deal a bit with some of the same things that Nintendo fans do. But I don't often see people getting worried about what PlayStation 5 is going to be, because Sony has been consistent with PlayStation 1 through 4. I don't see people arguing that Sony is doomed because they had a bad generation or 2 sales-wise, because they factually haven't yet. And I don't see Xbox people even bat an eye over the sales of their platforms because fan wars. I mean, hey, Microsoft is one of the largest companies in the world and makes so much money off Xbox Live that the hardware is really gravy, baby. Whatever you say bounces off our billions, possibly trillions, in the bank. A lot of that sort of pressure we are under as Nintendo fans for Nintendo to just fail is tough. But why do so many people want Nintendo to fail? Some may argue it's about the reputation of the industry. We don't want kids and grandmas in our playground. Some will argue it's because Nintendo's changes they don't like seem to always get adopted. Of course, Connect, save at launch of the Xbox One, and Move for PlayStation have, well, always been optional add-ons and not the main selling point of the platforms. Plus, to call Xbox and PlayStation now have virtual console-like subscription services their fans absolutely love. And again, that's another idea borrowed from Nintendo's way of thinking. But I digress. You pick your battles when they suit your arguments. I don't think any of that is really it anyways. No, I think it comes down to really one simple reality. They don't want to buy Nintendo hardware to play Nintendo games. They want Nintendo games on their platform. They don't talk about Nintendo going Sega because the facts actually support that reality, because they factually don't, but because they want Nintendo to be a third party so they can play Nintendo games without buying Nintendo platforms. It's really that simple, and for that, I can't really blame a lot of the people that want Nintendo to fail. I mean, in that regard, I really want Sony to fail, so games like Uncharted and Shenmue 3 are forced to come to Switch for some reason. But that's just not realistic. I realize not everyone can afford multiple platforms, and like many, I too wish I could own a single platform and get every game in the world on it. It's just, I want that platform to be Switch, so I could play those games on the go and at home. Xbox fans wish it was the Xbox One X, so they could play all those games in glorious 4K on their 4K TVs. Sony fans probably wish it was the PlayStation, because their brand has been the most consistent with sales and maintaining their audience. And you know, I can't fault any of us there. In the end, as Nintendo fans, we're always going to hear that Nintendo is doomed, that the Switch will fail or whatever hardware is next, the games suck, or whatever excuse comes next, because ultimately, I don't know that any of us are truly 100% satisfied with any single system we own. But if we were, would we even look forward to or want a new generation of hardware in the first place? You guys let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. I am Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you dislike this video, hit that dislike button, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one.